Today we are going to be testing and reviewing the most old school, modern, throwback motorcycle on the road. This is the Indian Scout Bobber 20. And so we've done most of the Scout lineup. This is the only one I have yet to do. And there's a lot in this video that I'm going to cover. Even though I've covered the Scout extensively in the past, I'm going to cover this one just like a brand new review as well. We're going to ride it. I'm going to tell you the pros and cons, what I like, what I don't like, and everything that makes this bike special. And of course, like true to fashion, I'm also going to compare it to the most comparable Harley as well. Now, before we get started, big thanks to these guys at American Biker for supporting me and what I do and allowing me to show you this brand new motorcycle. If you need anything like a brand new Indian, a Scout, a Challenger, a Chieftain, or a used Harley or a Ravaco or Can-Am even, come check out these bikes over here at American Biker and talk to Rob. Great group of guys, man. Really appreciate their support. Now let's go ahead and get into this motorcycle. So the Bobber has been around literally since the 20s, and it started as a thing where guys would take as much off of the motorcycle as possible to make them lighter and faster. Now back then, that included taking off the front fender, chopping the rear fender as much as possible, removing the headlight, removing the turn signals, removing any chrome, and then it became more of a customized style, right? While all the while still retaining the minimalist approach and fast motorcycles. So I thought it was pretty interesting in the 40s when these guys came back from the war, they were used to riding faster motorcycles, right? They wanted faster motorcycles. So they'd start swapping parts and taking off parts, and it became this thing where you had this solo seat and this really chopped off bobbed fender, if you will, and front fenders, and of course headlights and all that had to make a return because, you know, it's illegal to drive without them. But this style has remained popular for over 100 years now, which is pretty insane. And so what Indian does is obviously they take all the modern conveniences that you want in a motorcycle like this, but stay as true to the old styling, which is very cool. So let's start up at the front. This Bobber specifically has more of the knobby tires. It's rocking the Pirelli MT60 RS tires. You have that front chopped fender. You have the headlight bezel right here. Now, they have LEDs all the way around except for the front headlight. I was hoping that 2023 they would actually introduce this, but they still haven't. ABS comes standard on all of these bikes now. You have an old school cluster. So as opposed to like the Chief Bobber that we did a few weeks ago, which has the ride command with the LCD screen, this one is still rocking the analog screen. You have the bar-in style mirrors, and what makes this one pretty cool is the fact you have these mini apes. So you have forward controls with the mini apes. So if you're somebody that likes the Bobber styling and you want to commute or anything like that, but you want a more comfortable seating position, this may be a good option for you. Two-tone seat, of course, it's a solo seat. Side-mounted license plate. You can see your swing arm right there. And because this one is the regular Scout, you have that metal cover that kind of goes over the rear swing arm. You have the chrome plating on top of the heads and then pretty much blacked out everything else. You have the pipes on one side, of course, and you have this chrome cover that goes over them until about the halfway point where the shocks start, and then they're black on the way back. And then, of course, they have the chrome tips. So it's a nice mixture of black and chrome throughout. 3.3 gallon tank, 543 pounds full of fuel, and a 25.6 inch seat height. So pretty much anybody can flat foot this motorcycle, and it's light enough to be able to maneuver. So I say if you're maybe a returning rider, maybe even a new rider, this will be a good option. Remember though, this is a 69 cubic inch liquid cooled motor pushing 100 horsepower. So this thing is no slouch. 6-speed transmission, and overall the styling of the motorcycle with the wire wheels, the chopped front and rear fenders, the headlight bezel, all of it is really old school with some modern conveniences. Now, another thing that they didn't do this year, which I'm a little surprised of, is they still have a key that you actually turn. It's not keyless ignition yet, I thought maybe 2023 they would introduce that, but they didn't, okay? So you have that very simple instrumentation, turn signals on the one side over here, plus your hazards, of course, high beam, low beam, and then you have your little selector switch on the left, on the back of the left grip right there, or the module that houses your switches right here. So that's pretty much it as far as the features, specs, and all that. Let's get this thing on the road, see how it does out there, and then that's where we'll talk about pros and cons, and we'll also talk about who I think this bike is for. Let's go ahead and get our helmet. All right, so here it is, 2023 Indian Scout Bobber 20. I think this is the only Scout we haven't done yet. We're gonna take this bad boy on the road. Now I've officially named this the most old school, modern, true to heritage motorcycle on the road. I came up with that all by myself, by the way, so drop me a like if you do indeed like that. Sounds pretty good with the stock exhaust, but let's be honest, it's probably going to be the first thing you change, because these things sound absolutely nasty with exhaust. Y'all remember this bobber that we did? I remember it because I hate those handlebars. Good God, that was uncomfortable. All right, here we go. So we're gonna take a little bit different route today. I'm tired of doing the same route, man. We've been doing that route for 3 years. This is a 100 horsepower, 69 cubic inch, liquid cooled motor. And so that's one thing that I love about these bikes, man, is they are so much fun. Which way do we want to go here? I think I want to go this way. We got the green. Yes, we do. Oh, shit. Suspension sucks. Pretty much like every bike like this, whether it's a Sportster, a Scout. Not a fan of the suspensions on these bikes, but you know, that is a pretty common upgrade, right? So now I have some experience with the Scouts, and so one thing that I like about this bobber specifically is very similar to how I felt about the Chief bobber, in that it has a comfortable seating position. You know, you don't really have that low, you know, low type of seating position. I hate that. It's just too uncomfortable, you know what I mean? So your feet are out in front of you. Your hands are straight up with these mini apes. And you could just kind of cruise, you know what I mean? Go over her. You can go through the twisties. Not really the twisties. Rocking the Pirelli MT60 RS tires. And so this has more of the knobby tires as opposed to some of the Scouts, which have more of a traditional street tire. Pretend like I'm in Tennessee already. Going to Tennessee in a couple of weeks, and I can't wait to ride some different roads, dude. Brakes work well. Of course, you have the single disc up front, right? I need to adjust these mirrors. The mirrors look good, man. They aesthetically, they look good. Functionally, it's just kind of awkward having to look down, you know what I mean? I don't mind it so much. It's just, you know, it definitely looks better. It's just kind of awkward. It is a peppy little motorcycle. So, who is this bike good for? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. It is great for returning riders. You know, it's okay for new riders. The 60 might be a better option for new riders because this thing is no slouch. And although it can be forgiving, the 60 is a little more forgiving. Okay, and it's like 78 horsepower with a 5-speed transmission. You know, this one's 6-speed with 100. So that is something you will want to consider if you're a new rider. I'm not saying that you couldn't do it, and you know, I'm not saying that you couldn't ride this safely as a new rider. I'm not saying that at all. I would just say be careful. You know, be careful because it does have some power to it, right? Somebody that is commuting, for sure. If you want just the simplicity of an old school bike like this, but you also want, you know, ABS, you know, and some modern conveniences like that. Want to step above a moped? Oh, there you go. I'm kidding, by the way, but it is well above a moped. Now, I did do some research on this versus like the new Sportsters with the Revolution Max motor, and I kind of compared it to the Nightster, which has that 975 liquid cooled motor. It has ride modes. The Harley does. Well, this one doesn't. You got to go up to the Chief to get those ride modes. And these are about the same price, by the way, as the Nightster, the regular Nightster. Actually, it's about the same price as the Nightster Special too. I just don't remember what that one exactly comes with. But the regular Nightster has a 90 horsepower liquid cooled motor, where this one has, like I said, 100. Super nimble, you know. Even with the bigger, knobbier tires, you can still kind of whip this thing around, you know, in a fun kind of way. Or if you need to do a little bit of avoidance because you live in South Carolina, where literally every quarter of a mile there's a pothole that can take out your entire suspension, well, this bike, you can do all that, which is kind of cool, right? So it is very nimble. I think I'm just more of a fan of the seating position on this one than any of the other ones I've ridden, honestly. This one's a lot of fun to just ride. And so if you're looking for something fun, you know, something you could take to a bike night and be like, dude, I just want to rip around on one of these motorcycles, here you go. 3.3 gallon tank. So you don't have a ton of, you know, fuel capacity there, but enough to rip around town. And, you know, I imagine this thing probably gets 40 miles to the gallon. Here's your instrumentation, by the way. Really simple. Of course, your ABS, neutral indicator, low fuel, light, turn signals, check engine, hazards, boom, right? So you got trip 1 and RPM gauge. Of course, it's digital with the analog speedometer. DC voltage, how many miles, trip 1. That's it, and a clock. So boom, there you go. Finding neutral on these bikes. I kind of compare these motorcycles to like your metric bikes because they're so smooth as far as the gearbox. I noticed that the Chief and even the Challenger are a little bit clunkier. You know, they kind of have more of that Harley transmission where you just kind of bang it down in a place and it clunks into place, you know what I mean? Where these, they just feel more like a metric bike, really smooth, you know? And although this doesn't have ride modes, that throttle is ready to go. And so you got plenty of passing power there to really get around people, you know, like that, trucks, even on the highway, I would say, you know. Right now we're cruising at 50. We're in 4th gear, 3,300 RPMs. Not too shabby. Go up to 5th gear. Very minimal vibration. Little bit of my feet little bit in the bars, but nothing crazy at all. We're at 3,000 RPMs going 50. See how this thing brakes. It wasn't exactly a quick stop emergency brake, but they work. They're not spongy either. They kind of hold that firmness to them. I like that. All blacked out. You got these chrome shields, which look okay. I kind of like how they break up the black a little bit. I think it helps to make it pop just a little bit more, but I do like the all black pipes they used to do on the bikes better than the little bit of chrome. I love how comfortable this thing is, man. You could just cruise. I got a slight bend to my back, ever so slightly, and that's it. That's it. Very nice seating position. Oh yeah, this thing needs a set of pipes. Now I can tell you, I wouldn't mind doing bike nights with this motorcycle, as long as I don't have to go over like 10 miles, because this seat sucks ass. I used to think that all seats from the factory sucked ass until I rode in that new Challenger. It's pretty much everything about that motorcycle I love. A buddy of mine was surprised that I didn't come home with it. I was like, yeah, dude, not yet. Need a few more subscribers, and then I might come home with it. This thing is just wide open, man. No fairing, no BS, no specialties, no real comforts. Honestly, it's just old school riding, man, at its finest. Bikes like this, I really love the wire wheels. I'm not even a fan of wire wheels, but it just fits this bike really well. I don't know how this thing would do on the interstate. I imagine it's, you know, whatever. Dude, I haven't seen one of those Slurpee signs in such a long time. Golly, that makes me feel like I was a freaking kid again. But so does this motorcycle. It's a very comfortable motorcycle. Now, one thing you could do, if you like the styling of this and you want to save a little bit of money from the Chief, you could add a windshield to this bike, give you a little bit of protection on really windy days, longer trips, whatever the case may be. But just remember, the Chief has riding modes. You have the option of the ride command, the touchscreen, the 4-inch touchscreen, and a little bit bigger motor, of course, a little bit more weight. So if you have a passenger or you're planning on a passenger, that's where you want to look at those two really carefully and decide maybe what is most important to you. If you're just a solo rider, well, this may be the better option for you. I don't know, but just a couple of things to consider there. This thing holds the road really well, man. For what it is, super lightweight. I like this a lot. When it comes to the Scout series, this one and probably the Rogue are my two favorite ones. Just because of the handlebars and the seating position. And then, you know, if you're a lighter frame person, right? Flat foot in this bike, no problem, dude. Check this out. I'm 5'7". Sitting down, flat footed, boom, no problem. Which engages. So if we look, that's all the way in. That's where it engages. So it's not as good as that new slipper clutch on the touring Indians, but if you're in stop and go traffic, you're not going to have a ton of pressure on your hand, you know what I mean, doing this a lot. So, and of course it's a cable clutch too, so that helps. High beam, low beam, fuel tank, of course, lockable. Not too bad. That little housing, of course, is going to cover most of your cables and stuff, which is good. Bullet style turn signals. That wind flowing back through my shirt a little bit. Yeah, I like this route, I think, a little bit more. Something a little bit different anyways. And I thought for sure, I mean, it is noon, so I guess people are on lunch right now, but I thought our traffic would be a little lighter. But if I do this one on a Sunday, then it'll probably be real good. All right, let's get around this truck. Again, plenty of passing power there. I'll tell you what I'm looking for down this line though, is I'm looking for those freaking potholes, dude. Seriously. Because this thing and hitting potholes, big ones, is about as comfortable as a hole in the head, dude. From what I hear, that ain't too comfortable. Alright. Passing power. Quarter throttle. Get over right here. I've ridden Indians so much, man, that I'm just kind of used to the turn signals now on the one side. Make sure Mr. School Bus Driver is going to stop for us. He is. Yeah, let's get this thing back to the shop. And let me close this thing out. Pros and cons. And anything else I want to tell you about this one, and obviously what I think about it compared to Harley. Okay, so we just finished up the ride on the 2023 Indian Scout Bobber 20. So I've already talked about some of the things that I like. The old school styling, the wire wheels, the 100 horsepower, the really responsive throttle on these bikes makes them a lot of fun. The liquid cooled aspect of it gives it that power and keeps some of the heat away from you. Now, I haven't ridden one of these liquid cooled bikes on a really hot summer day in stop and go traffic. I know how the air cooled Harleys do, and I imagine the air cooled Indians are the same. They get steamy. So you guys that own these liquid cooled bikes, let me know, man. How do they do on really hot days, you know, stop and go traffic? But you get that power and you get a really responsive throttle. The blacked out styling, the little bit of chrome and satin finish looks good. These bars and those forward pegs makes this, in my opinion, more comfortable than any Sportster I have ever ridden in my life. Now, all of that except for the Iron 1200, which they discontinued, right? So, but even that one had mid controls. The forward controls is the way to go, man. It may seem more unnatural if you're a newer rider, but I promise you that's the way God intended it to be. Of course, the bike comes with ABS. I think that is a fantastic feature. 6-speed transmission. So all in all, man, you have a lot of great things here. You have LEDs pretty much all the way around. They don't give that to you on the headlight though. That's kind of a miss, man. The Harley Sportsters, from what I've seen, have LEDs now all the way around. They should have that. I believe, I hope that they will introduce ride modes on these bikes, because I think it will then, you know, if we're trying to compete with Harley, which they are, that would be another step in the right direction. Adding the ride command system and the touch screen would all be nice. Those new Harleys with the Revolution Max motor and their electronics that they come on them, I rode the Sportster S and it was like that. It had, you know, adjustable levers and things like that. I don't know if Harley wants to go that route with the Scout series, because then you're up to like Chief money, right? And so I almost feel like if they were to do that though, because this is, I think, is their most popular bike, I still think that would be a pretty good move. You know, I don't know, man, but that's just me, man. I think modernizing like the electronics, adding the full LEDs would be a good move. So the instrumentation, although you do have this kind of modern, old school, true to heritage motorcycle, they still got to compete with Harley. So Harley's a little bit ahead in that game, which is surprising because normally they're a little bit behind. But regardless, when it comes to comfort, horsepower, you're going to get more out of this motorcycle than at least some of the Sportsters. I know at least, compared to the Nightster. The paint scheme, the flat paint with the black Indian head looks incredible, man. I love the logo and the way they do that. This seat sucks. This seat sucks ass. It looks good, but man, it sucks. The fact it doesn't come with an LED, I'm not a fan of that. We talked about the instrumentation that needs an upgrade. Keyless ignition, I think that would be another good upgrade as well. But handling, smoothness, and just an overall fun motorcycle, I guess what you would have to look at, the biggest thing for me, if we take the Harley off the showroom floor and the Indian, is this is more comfortable for me, and I get a little bit more power. So if we start talking about customizing bikes, well, then we can customize them to our heart's desire and we never get anywhere. So showroom Harley Sportster series compared to Scout series, at least this Scout, this one is more comfortable with more power. Harley gives you a few more electronics though. So you got to kind of weigh those things. Overall, man, I think this bike is incredible for what it is. For me personally, it could not be my only bike, but it could definitely be a second or a third bike. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be good in that role, bike nights and everything else that we talked about. I'd love to hear from you Scout owners. Which one is your favorite Scout and why? Make sure you leave that down below. Big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.